Hello and welcome, welcome, welcome. I forgot to do one little thing. Hold on just 1 second. Yay! I like my lights and I forgot to turn them on. So now I got my lights going. Yes, it's a nice little addition that I did for my little. Yes. So there it is. That's my new thing that I set up for my live messages. Isn't it pretty? Yes, it is. Okay, so welcome. I am forever redeemed and I am so excited because I am going to be giving the last message, part 7. Can you believe 7 parts? But I knew doing a lesson on the death and life, the power of death and life or life is in the tongue. I knew that that was going to be a very thorough message. And I'm very glad that I covered many different areas. And if you have followed all the way through being with me, because I know for myself in giving these messages, it has definitely been a huge learning and mental emotional growth. I mean, you name it, I've been going through it. And so if you have been following all the way through, then you, I hope, are also going through some personal growth. It is definitely a sure thing. If you have been following and you have really had an open mind and open heart to wanting to change, if you want to change, see, when it comes to faith, whether you are religious or spiritual, I hate the word religious. I hate when people come, oh my goodness, you're religious. Ooh, I hate that. But whether you have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, I do hope you will make that choice too. But that is between you and God. But taking that step of faith, like I said in my earlier message, first, no, step 1 is awareness. Step 2 is acknowledgement. And then step 3 is taking action. And I have definitely given enough information that if you have had an attitude of wanting to change, there is no reason why that change hasn't begun yet for you. So, this final message is kind of like for me. I had this pamphlet, and there is actually some things in the pamphlet that where I'm at now in my personal, emotional, mental, spiritual growth, there are actually some things in it that I don't totally agree with, and on those parts I just elaborated on. But I have had this pamphlet, oh my goodness, I gotta say something like my early 20s. I mean, I've had it for a long, long time. Um, it is possible that from when I was a teenager and young adult, those people who said to me, "What are you talking for? Your word don't mean a thing." It is possible that because of that, being a good small talk conversationalist, that has been more of a challenge for me. I talk I love it. The ideal situation for me is if I am around somebody who is very good at engaging small talk and all that, I can follow with those people wonderfully. But if I am around somebody who is very quiet and it's left up to me to be in charge of the small talk, oh my goodness, we are in a world of trouble. I mean, I talk about that uncomfortable dead air. Oh yeah, that would be me when I'm around somebody who's really quiet. Just and the people who are able to just converse with people and just talk about themselves and all of this, I have no clue of how they do that. I even think about, when going to support groups and I take my time to share, what's currently going on, but then I like I quickly, it's only for a few minutes and then I'm backing out of the spotlight. I do, and it's something that here I'm doing, but this is for the Lord. I am being used by the Lord. This is nothing about me. This is about the Lord speaking through me and me encouraging and inspiring people. And I'm utilizing the wrong things that happen in my life to encourage and inspire others. Not being that victim, but rather being that victor, to rise above the circumstances that took place and use them to bless and inspire and encourage other people, which would be totally awesome. So, uh, this message is, yeah, so it's coming from that pamphlet that I've had forever and I'm finally utilizing it. So the title is How to Carry on a Conversation Without Being a Bore. So the main reason some people are not good conversationalists is because they try too hard. I think of my own personal experience throughout my adult life. And this, I'm just kind of retelling you of what I just told you, but um, I have found myself a bit envious of those people who can talk about themselves, tell stories, and frankly are so likable to socialize with. With regard to myself and my personal experience with socializing, I can say that I am an excellent follower in the topic of communication, and that is because I am an excellent listener. Which I will be sharing this article in this live message. And like I was saying, this article I have had for so many years. So I am finally going to utilize this article on this final message, my personal experience and testimonial in this article. One of the main things it highlights is an excellent communicator is one who is a good listener. However, from personal experience and in making reference to that statement, my opinion, being a good listener has a downfall. You are always listening, and majority of individuals love the fact of the genu, genuity. I know what word I put in there, just me speaking. Genuity, empathy, compassion that they can truly sense when sharing their stories or current life challenges. People love that. People love that. And if you're listening to them and devoting your time and really showing that you are into what they are saying, oh yeah, they'll just share. So there's one part that I want to share as a testimonial regarding this gift of listening and this gift of heart. Uh, I have had an inside chuckle multiple times because of the frequency of this happening to me. A total stranger will approach me and start talking to me. Very quickly, they start sharing some very personal information. Plus, having a gift of heart that comes from the Lord, I don't mind. And with compassion, I will listen and strive to give encouragement or validation of some sort. For a lot of people, including myself, people just want to feel heard and validated. So, yeah, it's just really something how throughout the years, I could be at a store, I could be at a concert, I could be at a church, I could be doing something, and someone will approach me and start talking to me, and it doesn't take long, and they are actually sharing very, very personal information about themselves. A problem with their relationship, a heart challenge with their kids rebelling, or just so many various items and topics that they would share with me. And so it started becoming like an inside chuckle of And I don't mind. I'll listen, and I will definitely encourage and inspire in however I can. It's just part of having a gift of heart. So, so back to the downfall of being a good listener. What I have to share or have a need to talk to a family member about or someone else in my inner circle, when the conversation begins, I am listening to them and allowing them time to share whatever it is that they would like to share with me. After that allotted time, it seems to happen that they are ready to end the conversation, and I am left with words unspoken. Years ago, with my ex husband, who is just a wonderfully gifted musician, writer, singer, um, we were D DNA. That was our music name. And we made 5 CDs. It was really an awesome gift of doing songs together. So after talking about this and with talking about listening and then people wanting to talk about themselves, and then when they're done talking they're just ready to be done and I'm left hanging. So it made me think of one of the songs that we wrote together. However, because I don't have an accompanist and because this song is actually a really jazzy song, one day I would like to learn how to put audio on YouTube, but I haven't figured that out yet. So the title of this song is You Only Hear What You Want to Hear. And I'm just going to read these lyrics. I already tried to sing it a cappella. It don't work. Nope. I will spare your eardrums. So, you may not like the things that are sometimes said. They may cause a whirlwind spinning round your head. The message is out there for you to hear. If you don't listen, you're going to get kicked to the rear. You only hear what you want to hear. There are things being said that are sincere. I'm saying things that you need to comprehend, and I'll always be there for you until the end. How many times do we begin to fight? We never want to admit that the other is right. Discerning within is the only way. Don't block me out when I got something to say. You only hear what you want to hear. Selecting selective hearing is not the way to live. If you're always blocking out the positive, don't be lost out there in outer space, especially when I'm talking right into your face. You only hear what you want to hear. There are things being said that are sincere. I'm saying things you need to comprehend, and I'll always be there for you until the end. So yeah, that was one of our songs from DNA. And it actually really does have a funky music beat. My ex-husband, man, he very, very gifted musician. Oh, he could play Jerry Lee Lewis. Oh, I could listen all day to him playing keyboard. Just very, very talented. Okay, and carrying on. When it comes to being a good conversationalist, many of us think we must tell of some big deal that we have pulled in order to impress others. But let's face it, when we do this, we are just plain bores. The best way to carry on a conversation without being a bore is to talk about the other person or about their interests. This requires a lot of listening. People want to tell you of their accomplishments and interests, not listen to yours. Good conversationalists take advantage of this fact. So here's a story from the author of this article. So this is his story. Several years ago, I owned a small contemporary furniture business. I was in Dallas on a buying trip and had a luncheon appointment with a Swedish industrialist named Folk Olsen. Mr. Olsen was the president of a worldwide furniture building whose salary was probably twice the salary of the president of the United States. He had worked his way up from a cleanup boy to a company president. He was a genius at furniture design, with many of them winning world acclaim. In fact, as I recall, one of them had won an award at the Brussels World Fair just before our meeting. He was the first person to successfully market Scandinavian furniture in the United States, on a broad scale, even. Looking back on that visit, I can see the real lesson behind his ability at conversation, and I can see why Mr. Olson had achieved success. He was at ease around people, and he knew how to carry on a conversation. As we were seated at the table, Mr. Olson's first words were, "Mr. Willingham, how do you think we can improve our products?" Wow! Do you know that I was so impressed with his awareness of rare intelligence that I spent almost 2 hours telling him how he could improve his products? He listened very intently, and when I had exhausted my knowledge on a particular subject, which was fairly often, he had simply asked another question. He followed my endless pattern with patience and an occasional nod of agreement. I was sure from the way he listened that he had tapped the greatest source of furniture knowledge to be found. What a bore I must have been! But for months, all I thought about was what a tremendous conversationalist Folk Olson was, and how interested he was in me. Mr. Olson had learned a secret that it was to take me several years to learn. A good conversationalist is someone who is a good listener. Also, he is someone who is interested in other people and can ask well placed questions. Last week, I was drinking coffee with 6 or 7 men, and someone mentioned having the flu during the past week. He told the whole details to how sick he was, how long he was in bed, and all about his temperature. Before he could finish, one of the other men broke into the conversation with an account of his bout with the flu. Glancing around the table at the men, I saw that each man was just itching to tell about their last illness. I also noticed that not a single man was permitted to finish their story before they were interrupted by another who was sicker and had a higher temperature. It was clear that no one was really interested in the other person's illness. Each were only interested in telling of their own. You know, this part of the article is actually quite discouraging and disheartening. Why? Now, this is me talking. I don't have to think too hard when thinking about past social events I have been to and the conversations that go on at the table. When I think about W.W.J.D, what would Jesus do in this scenario? Jesus' compassion and his heart for every one of his beloved children, regardless of age. Jesus would never try to one up on the other person in the conversation. I can visualize Jesus intently listening, making eye contact, and genuinely validating the speakers, showing their importance and how what they are talking about is important. Has our society become so self centered, so self focused, so greedy and selfish? Boy, that's sad. I want to address my listening audience right now because what this guy in this article is sharing, it is actually quite sad. Where was their empathy for the guy who was initially sharing about being sick? That they don't even let him finish his sentence before cutting him off to one up him? Ponder that for a moment. Think about social functions that you have attended and try to remember how conversations went at the table where you were sitting. How were those conversations going? Were you or the other people engaging in uplifting conversation? If you want to be an expert conversationalist and one that other people really enjoy being around, then follow this simple formula. Ask questions and listen. This is a surefire way to gain the respect of others. The less you have to say, the better conversationalist you appear to others, and the more questions you ask, the more interest you show. I know that this is the guy again. I like to run an occasional experiment when I am with another person for any length of time. I simply ask questions and listen. It is amazing how well I get to know some people this way, and it is even more amazing how it helps them. The payoff comes when they suddenly apologize for doing all the talking. Usually it is phrased like this: I'm sorry if I've done all the talking. When I hear this remark, I know that I have been a successful conversationalist. Okay, gonna cut in for a moment on this last part. Can't help it. Like I said, there's some parts in this that I'm not in agreement. So in one of my messages in this 6-part series, I talk about replacing I'm sorry with thank you. So this would be a good example of an appropriate spot to put a thank you for intently listening to me versus apologizing. Like, thank you so much for intently listening to me. I don't have this in here, but I actually had a doctor's appointment this morning, and the doctor just was so thorough. She wasn't rushing me out the door. I mean, here I'm even thinking that I need to wrap things up. And no, she was allowing me, I started kind of touching on another subject, and she sat there and listened. And I was so grateful for her thoroughness because a lot of doctors just want to get to the point and get you on out the door. But no, she gave me over an hour. And I was so grateful. So, thank you for listening to this little example. But yes, in my one of my messages, I think it was message 5, learning to say no and then replacing I'm sorry with thank you. So, where this person's apologizing for doing all the talking, you could replace that with thank you for intently listening to me. So, while strengthening your listening habits, here are 3 things not to do while you're talking. 1, do not gossip. Huge. There is nothing advantageous to gossiping. All it does is get you into trouble. People who gossip do it to strengthen their own position, but it never does. 2, be mindful when giving advice. This is what the author says, but I am shortening it to be mindful when giving advice. Do not give, no, this is the author. Do not give advice unless someone asks for it. It is always possible that the person who is seeking the advice only wants you to agree with them. Here is my interjection again. As a witness, especially when you're amongst people of general society, never compromise your morals and values to fit in. Agreeing with someone just to not ruffle any feathers. If you have, okay, so don't just agree with somebody to agree with them because you don't want to ruffle any feathers, you don't want to offend or whatever. And that's being a people pleaser. Through PTG, post trauma growth, this is one part that I have been in a lot of my messages of encouraging people to not be a people pleaser. That is a tendency when you've been harmed and left kind of frail and fragile. You become a people pleaser because you don't want to confront people. So this one, do not just agree to agree. Don't compromise your morals and values. So if you have fully surrendered to Jesus, then you are, now this is important, you are that light on the hill. Your life, your lifestyle, your conversation, your body language, all of that. We are in the world, but we are not of this world. I think of an 80s Christian song. Oh my goodness, this was my favorite song. It's by the Christian 80s group Petra. And I think I will try to sing it. It is called Not of This World. We are pilgrims in a strange land. We are so far from our homeland. With each passing day, it seems so clear this world will never want us here. We're not welcome in this world of wrong. We are foreigners who don't belong. We are strangers. We are aliens. We are not of this world. We are envoys. We must tarry with this message. We must carry with so many. There's so much to do before we leave. With so many more who may believe. Our mission here can never fail, and the gates of hell will not prevail. The chorus again. We are strangers. We are aliens. We are not of this world. Jesus told us men would hate us, but we must be of good cheer. He has overcome this world of darkness. Soon we will depart from here. And then it repeats the chorus again. It is unfortunate. There was a time that my singing ability was pretty good. And since that surgery that I had it's been over a year. August 29th was a year. And something happened and my left vocal cord is paralyzed. I still like to sing, so I will still sing on my live messages, but I do know and I thank you for your gracious understanding when I lose breath or I can't hit a higher note. But I'm believing still for miracles. So, okay, to continue on. And yes, that was a rabbit trail. If you've been following my live messages, you know I go on them from time to time. So, I cannot help but insert God's truth where the Holy Spirit instructs me. So I believe the author of this article is a secular individual. So there are some parts that I have to include what Jesus has taught us. So let's continue on with item 3 of what not to do when communicating. So number 3 is never be sarcastic. Benjamin Franklin once observed that this is folly and that the person who uses it neither improves others. It is misguided if the person thinks that their sarcasm improves himself. I can tell you right now, anybody who is sarcastic that's talking to me, I definitely do not enjoy it. So I do not think it is pleasing to anyone else when somebody does sarcastic hearing. In other words, it benefits no one, and it is a good way to lose a friend or audience. So let's sum this all up by saying don't try to be a good conversationalist, be a good listener. Before I share what the author says in this summary, I will say, preceding this statement, be mindful of your listening audience before sharing personal information. Don't talk about your terrible bout with the flu last week, or show that jagged scar, or narrate that near death operation. Don't gossip, give advice, or be sarcastic. Observe these things, and you will be welcomed anywhere, and you will be amazed at your newly acquired popularity. How to compliment someone sincerely. Have you ever noticed how neglected this art is? And yet, how everyone hungers for appreciation. You would think that since it is free, it would be more common. But the law of supply and demand doesn't work here. The supply is unlimited, as is the demand, but the actual rate of exchange is amazingly low. There are so few people who really practice this trait that when we do develop it, we immediately place ourselves in a rare and elite group. Proper application of this will feed our confidence, and what is more, we will be welcome guests in any crowd. Most of us would like to be a compliment giver, but many times we are afraid that it will be misunderstood and taken as cheap flattery. One reason for our hesitation is that we don't know exactly how the recipient will accept our praise. At times, our appreciation may not be accepted because it is too general. The secret is to be specific and point out why we appreciate something or someone instead of just saying, "Boy, you sure look nice today." You could be more specific and say, "Your tie goes exceptionally well with that suit. The colors blend beautifully." Or instead of mumbling to your wife or husband, "Sure enjoyed the meal," you could tell her or him why you enjoyed it by saying, "The spaghetti sauce was very good, and I especially enjoyed the mushrooms in it." I like this little statement. I actually highlighted it in my message. When we appreciate something, there has to be a reason. So look for the reason and mention it. This gives our praise and appreciation meaning and keeps it from being taken as cheap flattery. I once read that we increase whatever we praise, and it is true. But instead of believing this, some of us go through life feeling that it is harmful to puff up other people and contaminate them with a feeling of their own importance. After all, we say, it's wrong to be filled with pride. Unfortunately, when we tell ourselves this, we not only deceive ourselves and go against our own self feeling, but we rob ourselves of one of the most powerful and potent ways to motivate and influence others. I'm going to say that again. I kind of stammered. We not only deceive ourselves and go against our own self feeling, but we rob ourselves of one of the most powerful and potent ways to motivate and influence others. Praise is powerful, it moves people. Giving someone sincere praise and appreciation, that is a quality. Hear me out. That is a quality of leadership. Yes, it is. In work relationships, in personal relationships, in the family circle, etc., etc. Why? Because everyone wants to feel appreciated. I can tell you from personal experience in my past personal relationships, when you are a giver, having a gift of heart, it is just a matter of time when you start being taken for granted. It just kind of seems to happen. If you're a good listener, if you're a giver, if you are empathetic, I mean, if you strive to show unconditional love like the example of Jesus did in the Bible, it just has seemed to happen that it is just a matter of time when you start being taken for granted and taken advantage of. It's just something that seems to happen. So back to this guy. During the third week of his development course, the men were given an action guide to practice for a couple of weeks. The guide goes like this: every day, at least once, sincerely compliment someone. At first, many of the men thought it sounded a little Pollyanna or idealistic, and occasionally we noted some skeptical reactions. But whenever a person practices this technique, they become hooked and see how powerful it is. One evening, Frank Landon, who was the manager of a Safeway supermarket, told me that practicing this caused him to give raises to 4 employees. This seemed like a rather unusual result, but he explained, I have 15 employees. Some are new and inexperienced. So the inexperienced, they make a lot of mistakes and follow up a lot of things. So this manager had always seen the mistakes that they made and he pointed them out to them. On the other hand, he hadn't recognized their good traits and the good that they were doing for the store. So he changed his attitude and started looking for the good in them and began pointing that out to them. So he did that instead of what he was previously doing of griping to them about their faults. And what he discovered is that their attitudes improved. and actually the store began to run smoother. The employees became more friendly with each other and with the customers, and this will help each person as well as the company. And he was going to continue to practice this very important principle. Well, of course he would. If he sees it benefiting the store and the other employees. So, in all actuality, this practice will change your life. And how it will change your life? If you apply it. Look for the good in others. Compliment if you see somebody looking nice or somebody does a good thing for another person, and you express that you noticed that and it was really really kind of them, and it really, just like what I did after my doctor's appointment this morning, I really shared with my doctor, thank you for being so thorough. I'm very grateful for that. It just really does wonders. So try it for 3 weeks and it will become a part of you. Soon it will be ingrained in your mind. And then when it's ingrained in your mind, it becomes automatic. So he's going to share another story where he stopped into a service station in another town to get gas, and the restroom at this place was exceptionally clean with soap and towels, a large mirror, and it was really well lighted. It was obvious that the owner was a hard worker and took pride in their business. When he paid for the gasoline, he said he really appreciated the cleanliness of the restroom. It is refreshing to wash his hands and face and know that everything was clean. Now, you would have thought that the attendant had inherited $1 million. He put on a broad smile, stiffened his shoulders, and said, well, I do try. But a lot of people do not appreciate our efforts. So when this guy who's telling the story, when he drove off, the man was standing on the driveway, smiling and waving. He will probably never see this man again and will never know how much the compliment boosted him that day. But even if he who was telling this story forgot about this scenario where he was genuinely showing his gratitude and appreciation with praising the efforts of this attendant or business owner, that business owner will remember it. There is something lasting about a compliment. The giver may immediately forget that they gave it, but the receiver will not. I can remember compliments given to me 25 years ago. In some cases, I can remember exact words, but cannot remember the name of the giver. It is amazing how our subconscious mind retains these pleasant memories and lets us feed off of them. Whenever we need strength and encouragement, the point is that we should remember the power of such gestures of kindness and understand how much genuine, sincere appreciation helps others. It is one of our most potent and effective tools in motivating and building others. And always remember, we ourselves succeed in direct proportion to the help we give others. Another effective way to show appreciation is to write a short note to someone. Write that short note to that person has done a good job on something. So when you write a short note to them, it many times this is more effective, and the reason why is a verbal compliment, it just happens and you say it and the person either absorbs it into their heart and their soul or um but with a written note, they can reflect on that. They can, if they're feeling down or they just feel like they just don't do a good enough job and they're feeling really lousy about themselves. Well, they got this little note that they can open it up and reflect on this really nice little message of where they did good. And it just really means a lot to that person and it can really boost their spirits. So it just is really nice. And the recipient doesn't have to show their embarrassment in receiving it. Also, they can read it several times, just like I said, and really relish it. And it doesn't have to be like really lengthy. Use a very simple outline, such as this. First and foremost, thank the person for their deed of kindness. Two, tell how it has helped you. And three, thank them again. This man who's writing this article, he got in the habit of carrying fold over notes and envelopes in their desk and in their briefcase. So it would be easy to jot down a longhand note, address it, and drop it into the mail. Or, I added, in modern day society, send an email. However, you must do it immediately while your appreciation is fresh in your mind. So, these are just a few suggestions that will help you grow in the ability of giving praise and appreciation to others. And I am sure that you know of several others, but simply knowing isn't enough. Action is the thing. You will enjoy this delightful experiment in abundant living. Praise does magnify the good quality of others. It builds up other people. But more important, it builds you up at the same time. How to accept a compliment. Now, this one's kind of deep because I've heard a lot of people who get a compliment, they try to brush it off. Well, cultivating the healthy habit of giving sincere praise and appreciation, it is also important that we learn how to receive and accept compliments. For to graciously receive a compliment is to give one back to the giver. But few people really know how to do this important thing. Instead, we tend to slough it off the praise and yell long and loud that they are not worthy of it. This not only spoils the pleasure of the giver and closes the door for future signs of appreciation, but it shows your own lack of confidence. Our self confidence can also be measured by the way we accept compliments. And it is true too. What's the true? What is so true? That yes, I'm getting excited, that we can bolster our confidence by building up our ability to accept praise and appreciation. Don't you feel empty when you give someone a compliment and they have the attitude, nah, you don't mean me. You're just joking. Don't try to con me, buddy, me. Oh, surely not me. Without thinking, many people seem to question your sincerity. Isn't that something? Isn't that something? That they will question your sincerity? So, in our development classes, the members vote each evening for the outstanding speaker, and they are awarded a nice book or a pocket sized New Testament. So, in this man's office where he was doing this, recently, a man, one of his work associates, was given an award, and this is in substance, is what he said. So this is what the receiver said. Well, I'm sure everybody is going to get one of these sooner or later. And I guess I might as well get mine tonight. Besides, he probably felt sorry for me anyway. Wow. Just reading that, I would feel really like let down. So what had been happiness for a deserving fellow turned into disappointment. And this punctured the enthusiasm of the whole class. And it was all because of his lack of confidence. Incidentally, the man who's writing this, he was very happy to say that in the next few weeks, the man who received this gift did strengthen their self-image, and they gained a tremendous amount of self confidence. And this happened when he stopped thinking about his own little narrow world and got interested in other people and their interests. Boy, this is just so stimulating. Parts of this really is stimulating. Because if you can adopt this behavior, this attitude, because we really have been living in a world that has become so self centered and so self focused and so selfish and so greedy. And to adopt this attitude of appreciation and graciousness and receiving compliments and giving compliments and listening to each other. Wow. I mean, just being so personable, that is so growing, self maturing. So back to this story, this man who initially was just sloughing off this gift, what he ended up doing was he began encouraging other men in the group more and more. And in reality, both of these grew in direct proportion to each other and fed each other. So personally, with this author, he liked to mentally associate accepting a compliment with a football team. So this is going to be an analogy. Picture the team in a set position. The center is over the ball and snaps it to the quarterback. The quarterback takes the ball, holds it momentarily, and then usually hands it off or passes it. Now, assume the ball is the compliment. The center is the giver, and quarterback is the receiver. Let's tie it together by remembering when someone gives us a compliment, we accept it and keep it momentarily. We acknowledge that we have it and thank the giver, but then we can either hand it off or pass it on. What an analogy. And how you pass it on is by giving credit to others. The secret is to accept the compliment, but not to keep it to ourselves. I think of the movie Pay It Forward. That would be a very good spot for that little thought of Pay It Forward. That was a really good movie. The boy did a good deed, and you paid for it, and you kept paying it forward. And that was just continuing to be a good giver. So don't pass it back to the giver or fumble it, but with confidence and grace, give someone else a pat on the back. For example, thank you. We are proud of our beautiful flower garden. My wife planted all the bulbs herself. So that's one of his examples. Or I enjoyed this suit too. Thanks to And that is thanks to a good salesman who has been helping me select my clothes for several years. So, here's something that was kind of that I really wanted to add in because it's about sharing about receiving a blessing gift. Some people, and I correct a lot of people if they are given a gift and I see somebody given the gift and they try to refuse the gift, and I tell them right away, you are denying that person their blessing by refusing the gift. So, rejecting a gift can have a spiritual lesson in learning, humility, and discerning whether the gift aligns with divine will. Rather than out of pride or personal preference, it can also be seen as a rejection of the giver's blessing or a missed opportunity for spiritual growth, as it can deny the giver the blessing of giving and may be similar to rejecting divine provision if the gift comes from God. So, lessons in humility and discernment. Pride versus humility. Refusing a gift can be an act of humility, showing that one does not desire worldly possessions, but it can also be a form of pride. It is important to discern the motive behind the rejection. Point 2, the giver's blessing. Rejecting a gift can deny the giver the blessing of giving. Please take these into thought and consideration, especially if you are one to reject gifts. Please pay attention. Point 3, similar to rejecting God's gifts. One could also relate the rejection of gifts with rejecting God's provisions, as in the biblical story of the Israelites who rejected manna and longed for food they had in Egypt. So, potential consequences of rejection. Point 1, harming relationships. Rejecting a gift can cause hurt feelings or damaged relationships, which can be a sin in itself. Point 2, losing blessings. Some interpretations suggest that rejecting gifts may cause a loss of blessings. This can be a result of rejecting divine provision. Point 3, spiritual stagnation. Some spiritual traditions believe that rejecting gifts can lead to spiritual stagnation or a missed opportunity for growth, as it may indicate a rejection of God's plan for one's life. Refusing a gift can deny the giver their spiritual blessing by obstructing the flow of generosity and rejecting the love behind the offering. This act has several important spiritual lessons for both the giver and the potential receiver. So, lessons for the receiver. Point 1, false humility is a form of pride. Some people reject gifts out of a misguided sense of independence or a desire to appear self sufficient. This can be a subtle form of pride, suggesting, I don't need this from you. True humility acknowledges a need and gracefully accepts the kindness of others. Point 2, the need for dependence on God and others. The act of receiving forces us to acknowledge our reliance on a greater power and the community around us. Rejecting gifts can be a refusal to admit this dependency, which in title would keep us from experiencing the fullness of grace and relationships. Receiving is an act of love toward the giver. Accepting a gift with gratitude brings joy to the giver and validates their kind intent. By denying someone the joy of giving, The receiver. So, in the denying someone the joy of giving, the receiver prioritizes their own discomfort or pride over the giver's happiness and blessing. And the next point, the danger of living in lack. The belief that one does not deserve a gift, a form of spiritual poverty, keeps a person from accepting the good things God and others want to give them. This can stunt spiritual growth and emotional health, leaving a person feeling chronically empty, which would be horrible. I wouldn't want to feel empty. That's sad. So, lessons for the giver. Point one, the blessing lies in the act of giving. The spiritual reward for generosity comes from the pure intention of giving with love, not from the receiver's acceptance. As Jesus taught, it is more blessed to give than to receive. Acts 20:35. A compassionate giver's blessing is not fulfilled if their gift is rejected. The next point, generosity is a reflection of God's character. By extending an unconditional gift, a giver emulates God's own nature. True, selfless giving is an act of worship, demonstrating a trust and reliance on God as the ultimate source of all blessings. I'm going to read that again. By extending an unconditional gift, a giver emulates God's own nature. True, selfless giving is an act of worship, demonstrating a trust and reliance on God as the ultimate source of all blessings. Next point, the importance of discerning intentions. A giver may need to examine their heart if a gift is rejected. Are they giving with strings attached, or is their motive truly selfless? In some cases, a potential receiver may rightly discern and refuse a gift that comes with manipulative intent. So, you do have to use mindfulness in those scenarios. Graceful handling of rejection. So, this, if you are in that scenario, here's a good way. So, graceful handling of rejection. A generous person must develop the humility to understand that a rejection is not always personal. Some people are not prepared to receive, and the giver should respect their boundaries rather than insist that they take the gift. So, the greater spiritual lesson, at its core, the spiritual lesson in this dynamic is that giving and receiving are two sides of the same spiritual coin. Both require a posture of humility and an openness to love. Rejecting a gift disrupts this sacred exchange. It denies the giver the completion of their generous act and denies the receiver the opportunity to practice gratitude and dependence. By understanding and embracing the spiritual significance of both giving and receiving, we honor not only each other, but also the ultimate giver of every good and perfect gift. So, we are actually to the end, and there's quite a bit of good stuff in there. And we learned on the subject of how to be a good conversationalist, first and foremost is to be listen. Be genuine when you're talking with somebody. Allow them that time. Don't be quick to cut them off and try to one up them. That is very selfish and self-centered. So in every life situation, and this is how I am actually ending this, because It is a thing that I learned probably going back to youth group back when I was a teenager. W.W.J.D. What would Jesus do? And so, in any scenario of life, if you can adopt anything, adopt this word, and you think in your mind if you're doing something or you're starting to say something or behave a certain way, all of a sudden stop and think WWJD. What would Jesus do? So, and that is my closing treat because another song that me and my ex-husband wrote and did. And I think this one would have been a total hit if it had ever gotten in anywhere. This could have been a hit because it flows so nicely. It has a really good message with WWJD. What would Jesus do? So here's how it goes. The negative things you think and say, they will always lead you astray. If you keep your focus on the one, he's God's only begotten Son. What would Jesus do if he was in your shoes? You will see a brighter day. Have faith that you will be okay. I hate to see people who are sad and stressed. They think that their life is a mess. I know that life can be hard. It can leave you sometimes scarred. What would Jesus do if he was in your shoes? You will see a brighter day. Have faith that you will be okay. Look at the blessings that aren't man-made. Feel comfort that you can be saved. God is the way, the truth, the life. He will take away all your strife. What would Jesus do if he was in your shoes? You will see a brighter day. Have faith that you will be okay. Oh, the way that he did the guitar on the accompaniment, it was just, it's a really, really cute song. So, yay! My full 7-part series on the power of death and life is in the tongue. It is done. It is finished. It is over. And I am believing that each person who followed me through each and every one of those lessons and those sessions, that you have come out a better person, and that you have defeated different things that have attached themselves, and you got rid of different yuck and junk that was in you, and then you replace it with the living water and the peace of the Holy Spirit, and you are a new creation, and that he who began a good work in you is faithful to complete it. I mean, I'm just really excited, and I'm already working on a really powerful message for my next message. But as far as this series, it is done and over. And yes, I'm a little over an hour. Uh, I try my best to have my messages at a decent time, but I never end a message without saying, remember, you are fearfully and wonderfully made. You are beautiful. God loves you. God doesn't make mistakes. You are more precious than a priceless rare jewel. You are awesome, and God loves you, and so do I. And until next time, I am Forever Redeemed, number 4, ever, capital R, redeemed. That is my channel. I have multiple messages that can encourage and inspire you in whatever stage of life you're at or whatever you are going through life. I am sure that I have a message that can encourage and inspire you because God has given this to me to encourage and inspire. And I'm just being an obedient vessel to get out what He needs people to hear. There is so much in this world that just can weigh us down, and we need to be uplifted and encouraged. So I will see you next time. God bless you. Ciao for now.